I used to think the worst pain was being betrayed. But it wasn't. The real pain came when my son looked at me and asked, "Daddy, why is Uncle Leo sleeping in your and Mommy's room?" That's when I knew I hadn't just lost my wife. I almost lost my son too. Welcome to Cheating Story, the place where real people share raw, unfiltered stories of betrayal, heartbreak, and silent revenge. My name's Andrew. I'm 35, a software engineer, and for the longest time, I thought I had it pretty good. I had a steady job, a cozy home in the suburbs, a wife I adored, and a goofy little 6-year-old son named Mason who could brighten up any room. My wife, Lena, and I had been together for almost 10 years. She used to be the kind of woman who'd stay up late just to talk, who'd send me texts in the middle of the day, saying she missed me, who would laugh at my dumb jokes like they were actually funny. But lately things had changed. It didn't happen overnight. It started with little things. She stopped kissing me goodbye in the mornings, stopped asking how my day went. She used to text me during the day. Now, I'd go hours without a word from her. At first, I thought maybe it was just stress. She had started going to the gym a lot. At first, I was proud of her. She was motivated, consistent. But the gym trips got odd. She started going at weird times, sometimes at 8 p.m., sometimes even twice a day. I'd joke about it. "Babe, you training for the Olympics or something?" But she'd just laugh it off or roll her eyes. Then came the phone. She never used to care if her phone was lying around, but now, that thing was practically glued to her. Always on silent. Always flipped face down. If it rang, she'd snatch it up faster than a cat spotting a laser pointer and disappear into another room. I'd never been the type to snoop. I trusted her. But trust has limits, especially when it starts to feel one-sided. The real punch to the gut came one Saturday afternoon. I was sitting on the couch, half watching some rerun on TV while scrolling through Reddit, when Mason came running in with that mischievous little smile of his. "Daddy, can we get ice cream?" he asked, bouncing on his toes. I chuckled, like always. "Buddy, you know, too much sugar isn't good for you." He pouted for a second, then shrugged and said, "It's okay. Uncle Leo buys me ice cream all the time." I froze. "Uncle who?" I kept my voice steady. "Uncle Leo? Yeah, Mommy's friend. He's really funny. He comes over when you're at work or when you go away." I felt something tighten in my chest. My palms went cold. I forced a smile. "Oh, that's nice of him." Mason nodded, satisfied, and ran off to play with his Legos, like it was the most normal thing in the world. But me? I just sat there, staring at the wall. My ears were ringing, and my heart was beating way too fast. I knew kids made stuff up sometimes, but Mason wasn't the type. He was straightforward, honest, and way too young to understand what he'd just said. That was the moment something clicked in my head. A switch flipped, and I realized I needed to start paying attention. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid there next to Lena, listening to her breathing, wondering if I even knew the woman lying just inches from me. She looked so peaceful, like someone without a care in the world. Meanwhile, my mind was running like a machine on overdrive. Was this really happening? Was my wife the same woman who once cried during our wedding vows, sneaking around with someone named Leo while I worked overtime to give her and Mason the life they deserved? I wanted to confront her right then and there. I wanted to sit her up in bed and ask who the hell Uncle Leo was, but something in me said don't. Not yet. Because if Lena really was cheating, a confrontation would only give her a chance to lie, to cover her tracks, to make me out to be some paranoid husband who works too much and thinks too little. No, if I was going to do this, I was going to do it smart. The next morning, I acted normal. Kissed Mason on the head. Asked Lena how she slept. Made coffee, just like any other day. But behind that calm face, I was already making calls. That same week, I hired a private investigator, a quiet older guy named Ron, the kind who didn't talk much but got things done. I told him everything I knew. Gave him Lena's gym schedule, her license plate number, and the little I'd learned about this mysterious Leo. "I'll find out," he said, scribbling in a worn notebook. "Just give me time." While Ron did his thing, I started paying attention in ways I never had before. I checked the mileage on Lena's car each morning and again when she got home. I kept track of her workout clothes, which now smelled more like expensive cologne than sweat. I noticed new lingerie in her drawer, tags still attached, ones I definitely hadn't bought. She also suddenly had a new perfume. She never wore perfume to the gym before. One day, I accidentally picked up her phone instead of mine when we were at a friend's barbecue. She yanked it out of my hand like I was holding a live grenade. That confirmed it. She was hiding something, and it wasn't small. A couple of weeks later, Ron called. "I've got something for you," he said. We met at a local diner. He slid an envelope across the table. I opened it and saw grainy photos of Lena, smiling, laughing, with a guy who looked like he belonged in a fitness commercial, tall, muscular, and way too comfortable with my wife. In one photo, they were walking into a smoothie shop together, her hand casually resting on his arm. In another, they were in the parking lot of her gym, standing a little too close. But the worst one, he had followed her home. They waited in the driveway until the neighborhood was quiet. Then she led him into my house, the one I worked for, the one our son sleeps in. I didn't even feel rage. Not yet. What I felt was numb. She wasn't just cheating. She was bringing him into my life like I was too stupid to notice, like I didn't matter. But she had no idea that I already knew. No idea I was collecting evidence. No idea I was preparing for the storm she thought she could control. And if she thought she was going to walk away with my money, my house, and my son, she had no clue who she was messing with. I kept the envelope of photos tucked in my desk drawer at work. Every day I'd open it, look at those images, and remind myself, this is real. This is happening. But I didn't fall apart. I didn't scream or throw things. I didn't tell my friends or even my parents. I did what any man with everything to lose should do. I got strategic. The first thing I did was contact a divorce attorney. Not just any attorney. This guy was a bulldog, the type who specialized in high-conflict divorces and had zero patience for cheaters. His name was Mark, and from the moment I walked into his office and laid everything on the table, photos, patterns, GPS logs, he didn't sugarcoat a thing. "You've got a strong case," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But you need to be smart. Real smart. If you blow up now, she'll spin it. You'll be the crazy, jealous husband. Let her keep thinking she's in control." I nodded. That's the plan. From that point on, every move I made was calculated. I opened a new bank account, in my name only. I redirected my paycheck there. Quietly, I moved half of our joint savings into a custodial account under Mason's name, a college fund Lena wouldn't legally be able to touch. My lawyer helped me structure it so that even if she fought for half, the court would see it as untouchable. Every dollar was documented as for Mason's future. I also had the title of our house reviewed. It was still under both our names, but my lawyer advised me on how to protect my equity. Long story short, it was like building legal armor around the life I'd worked for. Meanwhile, Lena had no clue. She still came home at odd hours, still fed me vague excuses about late gym sessions or grabbing dinner with the girls. She thought she was slick, but every step she took deeper into her little fantasy world, I was a step ahead, setting the chessboard. Then one night, right after putting Mason to bed, Lena came into the kitchen. She didn't look guilty or nervous. She looked smug, like someone who had already made a decision and was waiting to drop it like a bomb. "I think we need to talk," she said, arms crossed. I leaned against the counter, already knowing where this was going. "I want a divorce," she said. I didn't flinch. I didn't beg. I didn't even look surprised. All I said was, "Okay." She blinked. That wiped the smug look off her face. "Okay." "Yeah," I said, "if that's what you want." She was expecting a scene. She was waiting for drama, for tears, accusations, anything to justify what she was doing. But instead, she got silence. A silence that rattled her more than anything I could have yelled. The next morning, before she could even bring up how to divide things fairly, she received an envelope at the breakfast table. She opened it, eyes scanning quickly. Divorce papers. Filed. Official. and attached documentation of her infidelity, bank statements, PI reports, photos. Everything. She looked up at me, stunned. For the first time in years, I had the upper hand, and she knew it. Lena stared at the divorce papers like they were written in a language she didn't understand. Her mouth opened, closed, then opened again, like she was searching for a response that wouldn't come. This is crazy, she finally said, voice shaky. You already filed? I sipped my coffee. Yep. You were planning this? I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. The look on her face told me everything. She just realized the game she thought she was winning was already over. In the days that followed, Lena tried to act like she still had control. She talked about splitting things fairly and what's best for Mason, but the mask was cracking. Her tone turned bitter when she realized I wasn't playing along. She accused me of being manipulative, of ambushing her with legal paperwork. But the truth was, she thought she'd be the one holding the cards. She thought she could cheat, walk away, and still leave with half of everything, maybe more. What she didn't count on was me being 10 steps ahead. At the custody hearing, my lawyer laid everything out with surgical precision. The private investigator's photos? Check. The timeline of when Lena brought her boyfriend into our house while Mason was home? Check. Screenshots of texts from Mason's iPad mentioning Uncle Leo taking him out for ice cream while Lena lied to me about being at a spin class? Double check. But the real nail in the coffin? The night she left Mason home alone, asleep, while she drove across town to spend the night with Leo. Ron had followed her. The timestamp on the photos matched with the baby monitor app one had access to. She hadn't even thought to check if I could see when it disconnected from the Wi-Fi. The judge wasn't impressed. In fact, he looked disgusted. When the ruling came, it was swift and brutal. Full custodied me. Supervised visitation for her. Pending reevaluation in 6 months. Lena looked like she'd been punched in the gut. Her mouth trembled. Her fingers gripped the edge of the courtroom table like she might fall over. And the worst part? The judge brought up something that made her go completely pale. He referenced the pattern of irresponsibility and deception and mentioned that in Texas, a fault-based divorce state, adultery carries real legal consequences. She wasn't just losing custody. She wasn't getting a dime in alimony. And because she had lied under oath during an earlier filing, she might even owe me damages. By the time we stepped out of that courtroom, Lena wasn't the same woman who had once stood in my kitchen confident and sure of herself. She was quiet, hollow. She tried to speak as we walked toward the parking lot. Andrew, I didn't mean for it to get like this, but I didn't stop walking. Because deep down, I knew. If I had never caught her, if I had never played it smart, she would have taken everything and walked away without a second thought. Now, she had nothing. The morning after the custody ruling, my phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, long, teary messages from Lena. She said she made a mistake, that she was confused, that we had so many good years and shouldn't throw it all away. I didn't respond. I sat at the kitchen table, watching Mason dip his pancake into syrup with way too much enthusiasm, talking about dinosaurs and his favorite new cartoon. That was the only voice I needed to hear. Over the next few days, Lena tried everything. She showed up unannounced with store-bought cookies like that could erase what she'd done. She begged for just 5 minutes to talk. She said Leo had meant nothing, that she was blinded, that she was lonely. She cried in front of the house once. I had to close the blinds while Mason asked me, "Why is mommy sad?" I didn't know how to explain it to a 6-year-old, that his mom hadn't just broken a promise to me, but had gambled our entire family for a cheap thrill and lost. And the worst part, she didn't regret the affair. She regretted the consequences. She missed the lifestyle, the house, the security, the idea of being wanted. She didn't come back because she realized she loved me. She came back because I had something she couldn't get anywhere else, stability. But I had learned, some people only value you when you stop letting them use you. One night, she sent me one last message. "I know I messed up, but don't you think Mason deserves to have both parents?" I stared at the screen for a long time, and then I wrote back, "He does. That's why I fought for him." It's been almost a year now. Mason and I have a rhythm. Saturday pancakes, bedtime stories, backyard soccer games. I still go to work every day, but I leave on time. I don't carry stress home with me anymore. I live lighter now. Not just legally single, but emotionally free. And Lena? Last I heard, Leo dumped her 3 weeks after the hearing. Apparently, being the other man wasn't so fun once the fantasy crumbled. She moved into a small apartment across town. Sometimes she sends Mason birthday cards or little gifts. I always make sure he gets them. I never badmouth her in front of him. That's not the kind of man I want to be. But me? I've moved on. I sleep better, breathe easier, smile more. If there's anything I've learned, it's this: trust your gut. Don't let love blind you to reality. And always protect what you build, because not everyone who claims to love you will fight to keep it. Some betrayals aren't accidents. They're choices. And sometimes the best revenge is living a life they no longer get to be part of. Welcome to Cheating Stories. Thank you for listening to our story. See you again in the next ones.